All right, here we go. Episode 2, part 2. Y'all still hanging with me? I hope so. We're going to get a little deeper into my story here. Okay? My 12-year-old said she can't wait to watch this episode. And I'm like, Mommy's going to be disclosing some things that you don't know about me. But that's okay. It'll just be a good opportunity to have some conversation with my daughter. That being said, I am going to be talking about, ecstasy and strippers a little bit, stuff like that. So if you don't want your children to hear that, you may not want them to watch this. I just want to say that up front. Nothing too deep, but I will touch on it lightly. All right, so here we go. So as I said before, I grew up in a two-parent household. I had my dad and my mom, and it was somewhat healthy, somewhat happy. For me, my dad was always the nurturing one. My mom, not so much so. I think they did the best they could. We were all human, and being a parent myself, I'm learning to be a parent every day and growing. So I think just being able to see my parents as not being up on that pedestal now, but as the humans that they were, I can understand they did the best they could. But I did not have the best relationship with my mother growing up. It wasn't the healthiest. She wasn't nurturing at all. That's just not the type of person that my mother was. I don't remember her hugging me at all or telling me she loved me or really showing like any signs of approval when we do something good or anything like that. It would come from my dad. I don't even really remember my mom crying. I can only recall one time that I saw her cry, and that's when her brothers, it was like her dad died and her brothers were dying back to back, and she cried and then she went to the room, so we went to see her cry. But that's the only time. So I think, not having that motherly love, it really impacted me. She was really hard on us growing up. I can recall she would often threaten to send me away to like a boarding school. And that really, really impacted, and some other things that really impacted me. And it played a big part in who I was, shaped who I was, and the type of person that I was. So jump forward to the 8th grade. I wasn't really into boys, but I started dating my first boyfriend in the 8th grade. It was off of a bet. I didn't even want to date him. It was off of a bet, but that bet ended up with us dating from 8th grade all the way up until my senior year of high school. And if y'all see me looking off to the side, I said it before, I'm looking at my notes, and I'm really looking at my notes for this episode just to make sure I don't skip over anything. But anyway, we dated from 8th grade all the way up until my senior year, and I think we broke up like maybe the beginning of my senior year of high school. I remember throughout that time, that situationship, I remember him telling me he loved me. I would say it in return, but I didn't know what love was. I really didn't know what love was. I didn't know what it meant. I was just saying it because he said it. I guess that situationship was like any other teenage situationship that you would go through. I wasn't abusive or anything like that with him. And I remember him, he might have really loved me, because I remember him sitting in the car with my dad talking to him about marrying me. And I'm like, oh, shoot. But anyway, that didn't work out. I broke up with him. But we did go to my senior prom together. And I remember after the prom, I probably shouldn't have done that, right? Because after the prom, I don't know if that gave him hope that we were getting back together. I don't remember why he did it. But I remember he was dropping me off at my parents' house. And I got out of his car, and he tried to hit me with his car in my parents' driveway. Now, I mentioned before, I think, that my dad was a big dude. And I was a daddy's girl. So I did not wake my parents up to tell them that. I never told my dad about that. But anyway, I remember that, so it must have impacted me somewhat. What I do remember about that situationship, I was very controlling. Even at that young age, I was really controlling. I remember he and his siblings would like drink, and they might have smoked a little bit, and I would get so angry. I'm like, you should not do that. Don't do it. And I would call like his sister's house and stuff, and he'd be passed out. And I remember being so upset with him. I would be livid over that. And I just tried to control that part of his life. So I do remember that. Um, I think that's pretty much the gist of that situationship. Now, back to my senior year, during basketball season. Yeah, during basketball season, I ended up dating one of the basketball players. And we ended up dating all the way from high school all the way up until I was, what, 29? So, like, a total of 12 years, I think we ended up dating. We were in a situationship. Um, Early on, in, like, I guess, like the end of my high school year, I had my first abortion. He took me to Virginia to get an abortion. I didn't understand it was baby murder back then like I do now. I actually had two more over the years after that, but that was the first one in high school. I think his dad paid for it. I didn't tell anybody about that. Um, yeah. Anyway, after high school, I stayed home and went to college in my hometown, and then my then boyfriend ended up going away to school. It's about 3 hours away, but we stayed in that situationship. Neither one of us knew what we were doing. We were too young to be doing any kind of dating, I think, and especially going off to school like that. I'm sure being a young man away from home for the first time in college, he did what young men do. Okay, he'd come back to visit, and I'd go visit him there as well. During my early college days, I went to a party school, and I took full advantage of that. Full advantage. There were many tequila nights that me and my friends took advantage of. I wasn't a smoker at that point at all. Cigarettes. I think I picked up cigarettes then, but I wasn't smoking anything else. But I thoroughly indulged in drinking. It's by the grace of God that I made it home many nights. I didn't get a DUI, and that I'm still here today. I have some nights I don't even remember driving home, but I made it, and I'm so grateful. Um, I remember one night, it was after tequila night, me and one of my then friends were riding home, and we went through, like, there was this road stop coming up, roadblock, whatever you call it, and I'm like trying to light a cigarette. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got tequila on my breath. Windows cracked, and he's talking to me. I know he could smell the tequila, but for whatever reason, he let me go. So stuff like that, it is by the grace of God. I remember one time, I was our family reunion was like an hour away from my hometown, and I drove back to go out with my friends that night, and then drove back to the reunion. And on the highway going back, I must have fallen asleep. I don't know how long I was asleep, but I woke up like suddenly. And you know, you pass out like that, you don't just wake up. At least I didn't. Y'all might be different. Hopefully y'all don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I fell asleep, and I woke up suddenly, and my car was like, this was really late at night because it was after the club. It was veering off to the left, off the side of the road, about to hit the median and go in a ditch. And the cars behind me were just far enough back that I was able to do a complete 360 in the road, trying to correct myself, and overcorrected. And I got so shook up that I pulled off at that point. But I'm thoroughly convinced. I know that was God that woke me up, because it wasn't me. I would have been gone if it weren't for him. So just stuff like that took place during those days. Just silly stuff, being irresponsible. I had no business drinking and driving and all that, but I did a lot. But anyway, so like I said, my boyfriend would come see me quite a bit, actually, and we would go out. I remember many nights we would go out, and we'd leave the club fighting. Like, that was our thing. We'd go to the club, get drunk, fight, make up, do it over and over. If we were like oil and vinegar. We'd fight and make up, right? But we would not break up. So that was just building into just like a toxic situationship. My junior year of college, I don't remember how it happened or how that conversation went or how it even came up, but I ended up dropping out of the college I was attending because I was so in love. And I went and I lived with my boyfriend. My goal was when I did that, I was going to enroll in the university that he attended, but I didn't do any research, anything ahead of time. I just went. And I remember I went to talk to I think the advisor there, and they didn't have my major. So instead of going back home or checking around the other universities, I just dropped out. I just dropped out at that point. But I stayed there with him because I was so in love. Didn't know what love was, but I stayed with him. So I did get a job. I didn't just like leech off him or anything. I got a job, but from there I started partying a lot, partying harder. It got a lot worse, and a lot of my money would go to, because we didn't have to pay rent. I think his dad paid it, so a lot of my money would go to like the club attire, alcohol, stuff like that. I thoroughly enjoyed the club scene. I think I was already forming an unhealthy attachment to him, but moving in with him it made it worse. It caused that attachment to grow stronger. I was so far away from anybody I knew, and he was the only person I knew outside of like his friends and stuff. So I think it got worse. And then on top of that, when you're sleeping with someone, you form a spiritual soul tie, which I didn't understand back then. And so that was just a whole pot of stuff brewing that affected me and just caused me to go downhill mentally. Excuse me. And also during that time, I think I had like a lot of insecurities. I didn't understand my value. I didn't understand my worth. And I wasn't a whole person on my own. I didn't understand that you should be whole on your own. And so I looked to my boyfriend to make me whole, to complete me. And with that, I made him my whole world. When things were going good with us, I was happy. When things were going bad, it felt like my whole world was crashing. I made him he was the center of my world, which is so unhealthy. Oh my gosh. My whole life was about that situationship and him. You see how that's an unhealthy view? I hope so. It was very unhealthy. I didn't see it back then, but I know now. And I hope this resonates with somebody out there. We were too young. We didn't know what we were doing. I didn't understand that another person couldn't make you whole. I didn't understand soul ties. I didn't understand the spiritual ramifications of coming together with someone. I didn't know. And being so far away from home and anyone that could be a voice of reason for me, or to kind of halt that, I just went deeper into the world. I just fell deeper into it, and my mental state just continued to decline. At college, you can imagine what college age students are like. My boyfriend and I at that time, we did a lot together. Even though we fought a lot, we were like a team. We did a lot together, just indulging in all kinds of worldly things. I started drinking more because I was drinking with him and his friends. I remember he would like brag to his friends about how I could drink. I think it was Everclear with no face. So that led to me drinking a lot of shots and trying to keep up with the boys. That caused me to drink more, And eventually we transitioned from the club to going to female strip clubs. As you can imagine, that opened up like a whole different door in me. And it led me to start getting curious about women, dating women. Here we go. Okay. Now that I'm thinking back, I think the urge may have already been there, but the door opened when we started doing that. I think there's something to that in my bloodline, because when I watch other women in my family and how they act around women, some of them, I see some of those same things that I would do, and I think it was in my bloodline. But let me get back to it. So with that, I guess as any man or boy would, my boyfriend took full advantage of that. We would look for other girls to join us, and in doing that, we would like pick them up at like, well, it doesn't matter where we got them, like strip club and stuff like that. But I think with some of those women, those girls, they didn't want to have anything to do with him, but they would want to have something to do with me. And so that led me down a whole side road of dating women on my own. I referred to myself as bisexual then, although I think I probably, even though I was dating my boyfriend, I think I probably leaned more towards women at that point. Yeah, I think that's fair. Um, so going to the strip clubs all the time, I ended up making friends with some of the strippers. I remember the owner of one of the big strip clubs there. She even tried to get me to come work for her. I think some of my family members probably and friends probably think I did at some point, but I did not do that. I didn't go that far. But I had some friends that were strippers, and so I started hanging out with them. My friends from back home would come. I introduced them, and the two of them even started dating at one point. I'd stay out all night with them because, they work and then they'd want to go drink and stuff after. So I'd stay out all night with my friends, and I wouldn't get home until the sun came up. Mind you, I was living with my boyfriend. I never thought how that affected him with me staying out all night like that and coming back, or where he thought I may have been, or anything like that. I was just all about satisfying my flesh in whatever way that I wanted. I was very selfish, and I wanted what I wanted when I wanted it. Yeah. I was introduced to ecstasy by some of those friends that were strippers, and that just opened up. When I would do something, I would do it all the way. So just that feeling, I just wanted it all the time. So I that became my drug of choice, and I in turn introduced my friends to that drug when they would come visit. And I felt so bad because one friend went on to do other drugs after that. I just always felt like it started with the ecstasy that I introduced her to. I pray that she's okay now. My life was spiraling out of control. My mental state was really spiraling out of control. I don't think my parents knew the half of it. They probably had an idea because, your parents know, but they didn't know anything I was going through at that time. But if you would have asked me during that time, I was living my best life, even with the ups and downs from the drugs and the situationship and all that. Yeah, so my life at that point was filled with drug-induced all-nighters and promiscuity. I remember sitting in the back of my car one night and asking myself why I did the things that I did, in particular sex, when I got no real enjoyment out of it. And I felt like nothing. I felt so bad after. It was like I couldn't control myself or my actions. It was like I was on autopilot and I was just doing things just because, even though I didn't want to do them, I was doing them. I think that part of it may have some ties back to the earliest thing I can think is when I was 15 and I went to visit a relative that lived in Washington, D.C., and he had me engage in some acts that I didn't want to engage in, and I'm sure that probably had a major impact on me. And how I was, That's the earliest thing I can think of. I needed help, but I didn't know how or who to ask for help. I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't understand the pain I was in was not just physical, it was also spiritual. I didn't know anything about the spirit realm or open doorways or any of that and what I'd opened myself up to. Now I know it was spiritual. I'd opened myself up to so many demons. Like I said earlier, I had a good job. I kept a good job, and I did my best to keep up appearances and just to look the part. But on the weekends, I was a completely different person. I was becoming such a toxic person at that point, very unhappy. I don't know why my boyfriend stayed with me. I don't know why he did. I don't know why we stayed in that situationship. We would have house parties. I remember that. I remember one night being drunk and being so mad with him, probably for nothing much, and I pulled a knife from the kitchen and I went after him. Of course, that ended the party at that point. But he didn't leave. He didn't leave. He didn't kick me out. He still stayed. He would threaten to leave, but he never left. I remember sitting in my car early one morning after a drunken fight with him, a night of fighting, and playing Emotional Roller Coaster by Vivian Green over and over again and feeling helpless. Like my whole world had literally ended and I had nowhere else to turn. My life was over, all because he said he was leaving me. Such an unhealthy view. Such an unhealthy view. I literally made another person my whole world and felt like if they weren't in it, I couldn't live. I gave another person power over me and my life that they shouldn't have. They shouldn't have had it. He shouldn't have had it. What should have been me seeking God, or what I was should have been looking for in God, I was looking for in another person. And at that time, Emotional Roller Coaster was like the theme song in my life. I would play it so much because we would go through so much. I think he realized the power he had over me. I think he knew I wasn't going anywhere, and so he treated me accordingly. I think he did. I don't know. Maybe the way I was rubbed off on him or had an effect on how he treated me. I don't know. Or brought that stuff out of him over time, but he became just as bad as I was. By the time we were in our late 20s and living in Atlanta, it was like the toxicity that became our norm. We became comfortable with living that way. We'd argue. He'd leave for hours, sometimes days. He was an audio engineer, and so he would leave for like days at a time and he'd give me the silent treatment. And he'd come back and he would shut himself in like his studio room and wouldn't say a word to me. And you can imagine how that impacted me. And I was already like declining mentally. It felt like a punishment. But I stayed right there in it because I couldn't live without him. I don't know if anyone knew how bad my mental state was that time. I'm sure you could see it because I lost so much weight. So you knew something was going on. It's like I was being eaten from the inside out. I'd lock myself in the bathroom in the dark for hours, sometimes overnight, and I would just sit there. He'd never come check on me, but I don't know if he knew the extent of what I was going through either, but I mean, he was right there, so he had to see some of it, right? I remember sitting and I would just hold bottles of pills in my hand and just look at them, contemplating taking all of them. I would sit there and play with the razor on my wrist, just toying with the idea of just going through it. I would call my friends, just like desperate, just to speak with someone, to connect with someone. I needed help. And understandably, they would kind of brush me off. That was a lot, especially in your 20s to have to deal with that. You don't know how to deal with that. And I get it. I might have done the same thing back then. I don't know. I wouldn't have known what to say either. But I felt very much alone and helpless. Never called my parents, though. I remember I went to see a psychiatrist. I didn't know anything about therapy. I didn't know none of that. So I did the first thing that came to my head. I went to a psychiatrist. They labeled me as a manic depressive. And they put me on, excuse me, they put me on meds. I think they were antidepressants maybe. And they would make me forget where I was. When I went back to the psychiatrist and told them what was going on, they made it seem like it was just me. They were like, well, none of my other patients have been through this, so it's just you. So that was the end of that. I didn't want to have nothing to do with the psychiatrist or anything therapy. I labeled it all under that same umbrella. So I was done. I was done seeking help. I would try to talk to my boyfriend, but I don't think he understood. I just don't think he understood how bad my mental state was or where I was. So he would just brush me off a lot and give me the silent treatment or tell me to suck it up. Everybody goes through stuff. I just felt like I had no one. That's right where the enemy wants me. That's right where he wants you, to get you, to isolate you and make you feel alone. And if it were up to him, if he had his way, he would have taken me out in that time. But God said otherwise. Thank you, Lord. And what's interesting, throughout that situationship, we weren't married. At no point were we married. 12 years. We hadn't entered into covenant. Well, we slept together, so that is a covenant, but you get what I'm saying. We weren't married. We were just playing the part. We were playing house. We didn't have to stay in it. At any point, either one of us could have left, but in my mind, I couldn't live without him. I couldn't do without him. I had to stay there. we'd formed a very unhealthy, dysfunctional tie. And I'm going to stop right there because I told y'all I'm going to try to keep it to 15 to 20 minutes, and I think I'm over that. But I wanted to get all that in. And we'll pick it up on the next episode.